from the boring, right? Which is not, you're not able to meter it or monitor it or charge for it. And given the way, I mean, from my experience of how boring pumps and the boring pipelines are located in houses and in establishments, it's not going to be an easy task because you are not in physical control of that part of the real estate. Maybe I'm thinking ridiculously, but the Water Act allows for charging of cess, which is only done to commercial establishments. Can you not look at putting the metering at the end point and charge? Because there is that, how are you going to look for that 50% differential, which is the cost you are incurring at the treatment plant? So is there some sort of a mechanism in the pipeline or in the sewage system that you can put a cess? Because if you start charging the input, your hopefully, your consumption will come down. The second thing is, I'm very familiar with Bangalore construction and the way Bangalore is now almost exploding like pancreatic cancer all over the place. With the high-rise buildings, building sumps is now almost a mandatory. Almost everybody builds sumps. So if you are delivering into the sump, why should it be your headache to pump it up 7 floors or 12 floors? Why can you not as a policy insist that if it's, and Bangalore has gated communities, has, individual houses, all of us have sumps. I mean, I live in both parts of Bangalore, so I have an idea of this. So your responsibility as the government should be to get it to my sump. After that, if I choose to convert a single floor house 10 years later into a 20-floor high-rise building, then it's my headache to pump it up. This is something you could think of. And water, sir, got privatized the day we started buying it in bottles. So I don't see why there is a resistance to price increase in paying for water.
It's more of a political, like as Madam and other people told, that there is a lack of commitment on part of asking more rather than people paying. People are ready. In fact, we increased the Bangalore tariff by almost varying between 20% to 70%, and except one or two agitation here and there, everybody accepted it. 9 साल से नहीं बढ़ाया है तो ठीक है, अच्छा तो किया है, बढ़ाया है, मतलब ये तो बहुत पहले कर देना चाहिए था. And that was the reaction of the people. Now coming to your question, that is extremely important to control the use of borewell water. Now the issue is that how you are going. Either you have to fit the meter at the borewell, or you have to fit the meter at the discharge point, that how much water is coming as a waste out of your house, and do the metering in a reverse process. Like right now you have a water supply metering which is water entering. Here you go for a metering for the water which is coming out. And it is again the will that, in fact, you will not believe that the day I gave this suggestion in the workshop, the next day every newspaper was like targeting me that the chairman of BWSSB wants to meter the private borewells. And I started getting calls after call. मैंने बोला भैया ये discussion था, it was just an idea which came to my mind and I just gave it. Does not mean that I'm going and putting meter on all the borewell. It's a policy decision. The state government has to do the policy decision. So it has to be done. The time has come that we have to seriously think about it. Now, as far as the pumping of the some part is concerned, see, there are good apartments, there are bad apartments. Madam, let me be very frank with you. In fact, there are apartments in Bangalore gated community which are doing excellent work in the reuse and the recycle the reuse of water. In fact, many of them have come forward to give that treated water to the lake of the local area as their contribution to the whole environmental issue. But there are apartments which are, they have put the treatment plant, but they are not using the treatment plant and leaving the sewage directly into the drain. That is also possible. But here we are talking about at least a pressure of 30 feet. So it is not necessarily linked to the apartment. Like even if a normal person, like if you go to any slum also, like in slum also there are 4-story buildings. The site will be only 10 by 20, but one after another there will be 5 floors and people living in those houses. So it is not directly linked to the thing, but 24/7 it needs a pressure not only from reaching to the 3rd floor, but even from the contamination point of view also, madam.
Hello, Nitin Pandit from WRI. Two questions, just clarifications actually. One to Mr. Lakhani and one to Ms. Kacker. For Mr. Lakhani, as it was explained by you very nicely, that a lot of the capital costs came from the government, the assurances and came from the government. The cash flow assurances also came from the government. And for the wonderful management of the system that you've done, certainly there's payment assurance that's there in the system. So I'm just thinking about the scale-up component, because there is political patronage that everyone has discussed, and the local will that you've been able to get. There's a nice spot in Nagpur that you've found. But if we are to scale this to other locations and other places, with all these factors being there, what is the risk that you would characterize that the private sector is actually taking in a situation like this? So that's one question for you. And for Ms. Kacker, you compared this to the power grid also, which is a good comparison. But when you talk about, let's say, the requirement for metering as a must, which is true, the need for tariff reform, which is critical, and also for establishment of a technically viable system, in this case, a pressurized system, for which the government will pay. So given all this, then is 24/7 really the issue? Because, if you had all this, even if you didn't have 24/7, the system could potentially be viable. So if you were asked that question, how would you answer it?
On the risk side, like I said, there has to be a champion, and because it's a ULB and the systems are, policy makers are politicians, so there has to be a champion who will think that my city should change from X to Y. Because this resistance does not come from only, it comes from all the parties, their own party, the outside party, because water is extremely sensitive. Like, we buy this at what, 1 rupee, so maybe what, 1,000 rupees a cubic meter. But 5 rupees a cubic meter, if I make it 7 rupees, it will have a huge hue and cry, like we rolled back in Nagpur. So I think, probably with the success, what I feel is that 1 or 2 or 3 cities or 5 towns, once they show that success, then, like Mr. Parvez said, then the other politicians will run for getting this 24/7, driven by the demand from public that they want better services. These are the beginning things. It can happen like that, but this is not the model which probably will be replicated too many times. But once these are successful, probably they will trigger people's reaction that they want such services. That why not? Why only Nagpur? Why not Indore, or why not whatever city? Yeah, please.
There is a good talk generated. I'm Shravan Hardikar. I'm the present commissioner of Nagpur, and inherent of all the good things that I've done there. I just want to clarify for everybody's benefit, taking the cue from your question, political will is currently visible because the CM is there from Nagpur today in this regime. Honorable Minister is there today in this regime. But in last 15 years, there have been an opposition situation in Nagpur, and they have struggled across a politically not so feasible and favorable environment. So that is the clarification I would like to put it for. Aisha ji had visited Nagpur and seen herself what they have gone through. So hard toil is there. That's what I would like to say. The practitioners, the theorists, the PMCs, the partners, and the people will have to toil it hard onto the street. They will have to argue it out again and again, day in and day out, to arrive at a consensus on delivering some things. But after 5 years of this toil, when I face a press conference after presentation of my budget and say that I will have to again relook at the tariff, this time to take a fresh look at what expenses. The press is quite favorable in responding to what I'm saying. But that 5 years of struggle has gone into it. Thank you.
So, if I understand your question correctly, you asked whether metering and tariff recasting would be justifiable even without a 24/7 or continuous water supply regime. Is that, did I understand correctly? No, sorry. So, if I could just ask you to, please.
I said that there are good principles that you mentioned about having metering and having tariff restructuring, and those are fundamental in economics of any utility system.
Absolutely.
Once given that, is 24/7 really a requirement, or can the system be rational unto itself? Do you really require 24/7 to be the modus operandi? Because an electric system, which you compared it to, if you had the metering and if you had tariff reform, and especially an analog tariff reform, which I think is it's a fabulous idea, the system would be quite rational and would be economically viable without 24/7.
No, you're absolutely correct. Whether there is an intermittent water supply regime or whether it is a continuous water supply regime, one can't get away from the absolute imperative of metering and the imperative of having cost-reflective tariffs. Absolutely. So what are the advantages of having continuous water supply or 24/7? I think Mr. Parvez, mentioned one of them is simply the intrusion of pollutants into empty water pipes when they are not pressurized. So you might treat it to potable water quality when you release it into the pipes. The minute the pipes are empty, there is nothing to stop contaminants from outside from, sort of getting into the pipes because there is no pressure within the pipes. The second thing is every time that water is released and withdrawn from a pipe, there is tremendous wear and tear. So there is a huge pressure with which the water comes through every time, and that actually damages pipes much faster than if there is continuous water standing in the pipes. Those are two. I had another one on the tip of my tongue, which I seem to be forgetting now, which is simply the leakage issue. Yes. So if you have water standing in your pipes for 2 hours a day, you're limiting the leakage to 2 hours. So there is not that absolute imperative to address it, to find that leakage and to plug it. When you know the leakage is continuous and you are paying for it, because as an operator, whether it is the city or whether it is a private operator, you know you are paying for that leakage. You have paid to pump it, you have paid to treat the water. There is a far greater urgency in addressing the leakages. So in fact, if you look at the maintenance and repair schedules for continuous water supply, far more stringent than what you would find for an intermittent water supply.
Yeah, we'll just take a last question because I think Madam is already showing me the hand for...
My question is simple. Why do we treat 150 liters per capita to champagne quality and use it for bathing, using for gardening? Why can't we have dual systems which actually 10 liters you give very good quality and rest 140 liters you give which cannot be drunk, which is done across the world? Why we have to do everything at like quality, drinking water quality? I think it's the most absurd question.
I fully agree with you that ultimately we have to move to the system of dual piping system. But let me tell you that we are living in a country, in a city where there is not even a single piping system. So forget about the dual piping system.